certainly if we have anything at the end. So without further ado, here comes social control theory a la Travis Hirschi. And I know I say this a lot, but I do mean it. This is one of my favorite theories. And I look at my favorite theories as in the ones that can explain a lot of crime and that do have value and that we can learn from, and to the best extent we can fix some of this so that we can bring crime down. That's my goal. It always is. And with your help, I know we can do it. So here we go. I'm going to share this screen with you guys, and you can see what I put together on Travis Hirschi and social control theory for you. Now, I'm hoping everybody can see this as well as see me at the same time. And today we're going to be looking at Travis Hirschi's social control theory out of chapter 7 in our text. You see the / bonding theory. Another way it is referred to is bonding theory. Some people don't like the term control, as if we're grabbing you and controlling you. And others prefer to use the word bond. And it is those bonds that control us. So what is Travis talking about here? And we're gonna go through it, so bear with me. Social control theory, Travis Hirschi, 1969. These are bullet points that you would see right from your textbook. We're going to go through those, and then I'm going to try and illustrate that for those of you who have more of a visual understanding. And I know it helps me, and I know a lot of you have told me that these diagrams also help you. But let's crank through these bullets and talk about them, and then we'll try and draw it out for you. Okay, so Travis Hirschi, one of the first people that we look at in our criminology text, that instead of asking why do people break the law, kind of took a different approach. And he studied, why do people obey the law? Why do people conform rather than deviate from the norms of a society? So it's an interesting twist just right out of the gate. He's asking a different question. Not why do people commit crime, as we usually ask. He wants to know why people don't. He does admit, and I would agree, and we could talk about this, but everybody, given some set of situations, has the ability to become a criminal. And so we'll look at maybe what some of those situations are and how people can perhaps avoid finding themselves in those. Most people, according to Hirschi, are controlled. And there's that social control piece. But what they're controlled by is not, necessarily a set of handcuffs or something that is holding them physically, but rather their bonds and their attachments to segments of society. And that's what we're going to look at today. And that's what I'll try and illustrate for you. Travis says that crime will occur when those forces that bind or bond people to a society become weak, or in fact break. Then people have less self-control and obviously much more ability to fluctuate in their behavior. And that's what we want to look at. What are those forces that bind people to conventional lifestyle, to law-abiding behavior? Those binds or bonds that we talk about, those come from what we call institutions of social control. Very big phrase or term here, but what we're really referring to are any organizations, whether they are formal or informal, that do have the ability to get people to conform or persuade people to conform to law-abiding behavior or the dominant values of a society. What is right, what is wrong? Who teaches you that? Where do you learn that? And when do you accept that as your belief system? These are the things that Travis Hirschi is looking at when he talks about social control or bonding theory. Now, he also says for these bonds to be effective, they have to be strong bonds. And strong bonds are what will prevent us, or at least persuade us not to violate the law. And he says for those bonds to be strong, each bond has to have these 4 elements. You have to have an attachment. You have to have commitment. You have to be involved. And finally, you have to have belief in these value systems. And so when these elements of the bond are weakened or absent, these bonds can break, and it leaves people to adjust their behaviors in widely, radically different ways than we would expect. So this is all the bullet points from the textbook. You can read these. They're in my PowerPoints. I'll put them online for you. Now, if I can, I know a lot of you like the illustration. So I'm going to go ahead and try and put this into a visual for you so that you can kind of see how this works in action for our visual learners out there. And again, at any point in time, if you have a question or comment, go ahead and give it to me. All right, so we'll start here. And this is my whiteboard that if we were in the classroom, I would be drawing on with my toolbox here. But I've put it onto this PowerPoint and hopefully it comes out similarly. So when Travis Hirschi talks about everybody has the ability to violate the law and that we are controlled by our bonds to society, what he's saying is that you, me, and everybody that we know start off with a wide ability to move around and behave in a wide variety of ways. And so where you see this little yellow bubble with you and me, the rest of this area in the white screen are all areas that we can move to. And some of those areas are positive law-abiding behavior, and others, those are radically deviant and even criminal behavior. So early on, all of us, to some extent, are shown what those boundaries of acceptable behavior are. And if you look at this, let me see if I can get my cursor in here. In here and here, we can move within the boundaries of acceptable behavior. And nobody will come to us and say, you've done wrong, or you're bad, or you need to change. If we stay within those boundaries, most people assume we're good folks and that we're doing the good things moving forward, and that will influence others similarly. So we have to use our self-control, and we have to learn self-control. Some of those people, some of our previous theories, learning theories, talked about how we learn that, where we learn that. So we have to manage our behavior within these boundaries. But there is all kinds of room for other behavior beyond these boundaries. So you can see, if we step outside of this green circle, we are no longer in what are considered the morally acceptable behaviors of a society, the dominant values. So what keeps us in that bubble of self-control? Is it just us? And if it is, how do we accomplish that? Because if we move too far to the left or too far to the right, we end up in this category of deviant behavior, law-breaking behavior, crime, and if we go even further, serious violent crime. So there's an expectation in society that we don't move beyond this green circle of acceptable behavior. And how do we know what that is? And how do we control our behavior to stay there when there is temptation to go to the very left and to the very right? So most people in here, yeah, I see Jen over there looking on, Tom over there is looking on. Anybody, where's the first time you learned not to do something that was wrong? Anybody? I see a few people putting comments. Parents, my parents, yep, sure, of course. Some of your teachers told you when you were doing something wrong, right? Okay, so good. There are institutions of social control in every society that hopefully, if they work well, will provide us the guidance and those self-control mechanisms to stay within those boundaries of acceptable behavior. So we will start where I think it was Tom said, our family. I mean, look, at a very young age, you know, hopefully we all have a family, but some people don't. You know, and I used to work in child welfare, and when this is taken away very early on, it becomes even more challenging for people to control their behavior. But if you do have a good family, obviously early on, they're going to be telling you right from wrong. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, be nice to other people, be nice to your sisters and brothers, etc. So one institution of social control, certainly our family. We go on, somebody else said teachers, yes, education system. You know, we have to be in K through 12, it's mandatory in America. You know, this is compulsory education. And part of that is to learn those boundaries of acceptable behavior. Yes, we want to learn reading, writing, arithmetic. We want to learn civics, and we want to learn as much as we can, but we're also learning behavior. And it goes from our family in the beginning, and they move it over into the school system. And we hope that they're still teaching us those boundaries of acceptable behavior. Otherwise, we're getting detentions, suspensions, and those types of things. So another institution of social control. Then there are your peers. If you have conventional peers that also value their family and their education, those peers can also help keep you on the right track. You know, we assume that these institutions that we're looking at are all conventional, and your family isn't, you know, La Cosa Nostra, and you're not the Gambino crime family, and you're actually instilling different values than the conventional values. So the assumption here is these are the conventional values. This is the social process that we all go through, or we hope that most people go through. So far we have family, education, peers. Anybody think of any other institutions of social control that exist? And I'm looking and I see, yes, your job. You're absolutely right. Your job. I mean, look, my job, your job, even though we may not be hired to be the moral pillar of society, we also have expectations from our employers that we're not going out there and committing crimes while we're not at work. There are pre-employment drug tests, there are background checks. If we violate the law and while we are at work, or if our work finds out about it, that we did something outside of work that was outside of these boundaries of acceptable behavior and considered crime, we may not have that job anymore, because our employers also value conformity to the dominant values of society, morals, and all of that. So here we have family, education, peers, and employment. They all have some vested interest in our behavior being conducive to the work environment, the education environment, society, to living together in peace and harmony, and, you know, progressing towards a common goal of success. Other people like to add religion and community activities. Now, whether you're a religious person or not, I mean, it's very clear that the vast majority of religion, you know, whether it is something that you attend on a regular basis or not, the message is, you know, thou shalt not, you shall not kill, you shall not steal, you shall not lie. Those are all dominant values of a society. And if we can have those instilled into us through religion or community organizations, all the better. So whether religion is something for you or it's not something for you, you got to understand the message there is tolerance, acceptance, and community. And so, you know, this view here that we see, and this is certainly not a complete list. I mean, we could go on and on about other institutions of social control that in some way, shape, or form try to shape your behavior in conformity to the dominant values of the society. You know, don't be a bad person, don't commit crime, help others. And all of these organizations or institutions have some role in that. Now, I see a lot of hands up over here. Are there any other institutions I may have left out? And clearly I see them popping up over here. Ted says the criminal justice system. Absolutely, Ted, without a doubt. The criminal justice system are our set of laws. You know, those laws are supposed to be the things that these institutions also value. You know, we don't want you stealing or hurting other people. And so we have laws that that say what we as a society value. And most of us do agree with at least the major crimes. You know, we should not be hurting other folks or taking other folks' stuff. And that is enshrined in our law. And we do have court systems that attempt to ensure that law violators are prosecuted and held accountable. So certainly the criminal justice system is one of these institutions of social control. I see other people putting up here, sports, I see sororities, fraternities. Yes, all of those. Those are all institutions of social control that could be added to this list of bubbles, because in some way, shape, or form, they all try and get us to abide by those dominant values of society, which aren't, you know, which are what most people will consider, you know, common sense. Don't hurt other people, help other people. And hopefully we're getting those messages from these institutions of social control. Now, how does this work? Bam. Okay, we're bonded. If we were born into a family that we value and that we participate in activities with, if we're learning from the school system and developing a network of friends and peers that can help us and that we can lean on and that we can help, hopefully those things will turn later into meaningful employment and that we will have community engagement. And if you see all these bonds, what you're seeing here is the way that they tie us into society. And by having these strong bonds, they limit our ability to swing like a pendulum beyond those boundaries of social self-control. They pull us backwards. They pull us back when we step out of line, because if we step out of our line, our family will be disappointed in us. Our employer may not want to be with us. So oftentimes these institutions and organizations will guide us by our commitment to them. We value these relationships. I mean, by a show of hands over here, how many people value your relationship with your family? And you know, I see hands popping up everywhere. And your family wouldn't want to know that you're going out on the weekends and harming others. And so you value that. You're not going to do that. You don't want to break these bonds. They're meaningful and they have value to you. And as you can see in the background, a lot of you have heard the term, it takes a village. And yes, these are those villages. This is what it takes to have everybody move down the right path with the least amount of resistance possible. And if we have these institutions of social control that we're bonded to and that we care about and that they care about us and that we're engaged with, we're far less likely to step outside of these boundaries of acceptable behavior and break the law, because this is our support system. And we don't want to let them down. And they're going to try not to let us down as well. So when you've heard that, when you heard that term, it takes a village to raise a child. That's what we're talking about here. It's not just the family. It's all these other community institutions. So what happens when this goes bad? You know, when these bonds are gone and the village breaks down, where does your behavior go? And I've tried to diagram that here as well. And what you see here are some bonds that were broken or may never have existed in the first place, or the bonds themselves have turned deviant. And so what you see here is the same bonds that we talked about before, the same institutions of social control, but they have faded. And those connecting lines have disappeared or become broken. Or in the case of peers, I have colored the term peers red in this slide, and it kind of shows that these peers are now negative peers. And one of the only bonds left is two negative peers. And those bonds, even in that case, are jagged and broken. We can see that in education, this person here probably gave up on school or was kicked out of school, didn't graduate, didn't go on to college. They've had family problems, whether the family tried to help them and couldn't help them any further, and they broke those bonds, and they maybe victimized their family or abandoned their family, or the family has abandoned them. They've had, less than meaningful employment over their lives, can't keep a job, been fired, maybe have a criminal record, can't get a job. They don't really have any meaningful community connections. And now these bonds are very weak, broken, or even absent completely. And so now we don't see that strong connection to holding me or you or anybody in those bounds of acceptable behavior. So clearly, if we have this picture, we have lost a lot of self-control. And now our self-control is much less, and our ability to deviate to perhaps unacceptable behavior, criminal behavior, dangerous behavior becomes much easier, because we don't have all these institutions looking on us, helping on us, supporting us, because these bonds have been broken or weakened. And there are a lot of reasons for this here, broken or absent or weakened bonds. And we definitely will talk about how these bonds can get broken. But it's clear to see here that this is a much more difficult path to maintain your behavior in conformity with the law than this picture, where we're all tightly bound together in a common goal. So, we don't want people to end up like this. It becomes an area where, behavior is far less predictable and far more likely to turn deviant or criminal. Now, we'll just go on from here and we'll look at the elements of the bond. We have attachment, commitment, involvement, and belief. I'm not sure how this got out of whack here, but those are the 4 elements. And generally what we're looking at, are you sensitive, and do you have the interest in others? Are you attached to, are you concerned with more than your own feelings? Do you put time and energy and effort into these conventional activities, into ensuring these bonds are strong? And if they're weakened, do you do things to try and repair them, or do you just give up? Do you believe in the morals and values that society has set out for us? Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt help other people. I mean, we have to believe that. We can't just fake it. It has to mean something to us. And do we involve ourselves in those activities? So without these elements, attachment, commitment, involvement, and belief, the bonds become weak. They're not strong. And we need to spend more time strengthening those to help not only ourselves, but our loved ones and our community. This comes out of the book. This is a diagram you can look at that shows, your attachment to family, friends, and community, your commitment to future career success, your belief in honesty, morality, fairness. You see patriotism, we are good people, your personal responsibility to yourself and others, and that you are involved. You're not absent from these things. You need to be involved in these activities in school and family. So on the top, you see all those commitments, attachments, and beliefs leading towards conforming behavior. And on the bottom, you see the broken bonds leading to criminal behavior. This is the textbook's take on these broken bonds. Now, just a quick story to share with you, and we'll kind of try and wrap this up. I know I'm running out of time. This is Curtis Fairchild Jones. Curtis Fairchild Jones, he was 12 years old back in 1999 or 98. He first came into my classroom in the Brevard County Jail, Sharps Correctional Facility out in Brevard County, Florida. He was at the time the youngest kid ever to be charged with murder in the state of Florida. Again, that was in 1998, Curtis Fairchild Jones. You can look him up. This is Curtis today. He was sentenced to 18 years and a lifetime of supervision for the crime of killing his father's girlfriend. If you look up Curtis Fairchild Jones and his background, you will see broken home, broken school system. You will see broken social bonds that created in a 12-year-old child the capacity to murder. He had a sister. She also aided in this murder and helped him to try and cover it up. She received the exact same sentence. She also has been released. But you take this left column of young children here at 12 and 13 years old, and you destroy all the bonds and introduce also abuse in the home, and you find that you've created a set of social, psychological variables that can create criminality in otherwise innocent young children who are in their prime of their learning and young life enrichment time. And instead, they're dealing with tragedy, sorrow, detachment, and lack of connection to a broader village or society that cares about them. And this is Curtis Fairchild Jones and his sister. You guys are more than welcome to look him up. I can share with you the conversations I did have with him when he was in my classroom. But certainly he, in my view, is a great example of how when all these institutions break down, behavior can go radical very quickly. Now, he is released right now. He still does not have any of these social bonds that we believe are necessary to control behavior. So sadly as it is, you know, we can look up Curtis Fairchild Jones today and through the rest of our lives, and there's a strong possibility that we will see more written about him because he hasn't made those bonds. Now, his sister, on the other hand, has really turned her life around. She has gotten married. She has become grounded outside of the prison system, and she is actually doing much better. Curtis, on the other hand, he's still struggling to find connections to a community that cares about him. And we don't want to see this happen. And what can we do about it? Just a little bit of support here, because I don't like to throw a lot of this stuff out here without showing some support. Your assignment's going to also be similar to this. I just grabbed a handful of stuff that kind of shows what can happen when these bonds break. And, you know, I'm gonna challenge you to look some stuff like this up for our next assignment. But here's just a little, a smattering, if you will, of research I have found. So just one here, the top one here, you're looking at children from broken homes, 9 times more likely to commit crimes. This is Katie Holland from the Huffington Post. Broken homes, that's that very first bond that we're looking at. And if it breaks down there, how are those other bonds supposed to become successful? We're setting people up for almost a domino effect of broken bonds when the family breaks first. And I come from a world of child welfare where the family was broke and the kids were removed, and now they're in foster family after foster family, moving from school system to school system, never really developing strong bonds. Next one here I'm looking at here comes from the Alliance for Excellence Education here. And it says here, our nation needs to focus dollars and efforts on reforming school climate to keep students engaged in ways that will lead them towards college and career and away from crime and prison. Bob Wise, the president, says it is a school to prison pipeline that starts and ends with schools. And our school systems have been failing. You know, there are schools out there that you must walk through metal detectors to get into, that you have to worry about your own safety in the classroom, that we have teachers that have checked out and they're just there for a paycheck, and they are not trying to teach people anything. It's a shame because they're setting people up for failure. Now, there are also great schools out there, and we need to support those schools that are doing a great job and trying to engage our students to keep them going forward and progressing positively. But we've got to commit time to these broken school systems where they are run by, gangs and drug dealers, and they have to have all kinds of armed security because it's not safe. That is not a learning environment that will engage anybody. I just threw in Aristotle, the philosopher, who said this long before any of these studies were done: poverty is the parent of crime. And we've all looked at the poverty-crime connection. Yes, I'm the guy that always says, let's make sure we're looking at causation and it's not just correlation. But these are connected. The more correlation we see, the more it lends itself to causation. We do have to keep them separate, but we do also have to understand that they will connect at some point, or they may. And just looking at the federal poverty level. So people in poverty, I mean, and this comes from our Bureau of Justice statistics, okay? From 2008 to 2012, persons in poor households below the poverty level, right? 39.8 per 1,000 had more than double the rate of violent victimization as persons in high income households, 16.9 per 1,000. I mean, it is way more than double. And so poor people are being victimized at a rate much higher than the rich. Where does that correlation come from? What is the causal connection here? Poverty, broken schools, broken families, broken bonds. We look at the last one I want to put on here, and just in dollars and cents, I took a state that has a very low crime rate. And this is true across the board for all 50 states. But if we have a 5% increase in male high school graduation rates, an annual crime-related savings in Idaho, a very low crime rate state, $35 million are saved a year if we can simply graduate 5% more males from high school. It's incredible. Additional earnings, $4,700,000 per year for the state. And the total benefits to the economy come to $40 million. You can go state by state, and simply by having a 5% increase in male graduation rates in high schools, we can have crime-related savings, income earnings. And this is just looking at one small segment of the population, high school graduates, males, and how much we can save in a society. So there are impacts of this, and this is just some support. And there are plenty of other surveys and research studies that can show some support for this. So I'm going to leave you with this last 2-minute video. I hope I haven't run too long on, but again, this is showing some level of support for this broken home leading to crime, broken bonds leading to crime, broken school systems leading to crime. So bear with me, and I will play this, and if you have any questions afterwards.
A new report about the rate of black homicide victims in the nation ranks Tennessee at number 8. And the majority of the victims are young men. The study shows those committing crimes often live without their biological fathers. News Channel 5's Brandon Marshall spoke with a father who has a message for those teens.
Nashville father Stephen Anderson works hard to provide for his 15 children.
11 boys, 4 girls. 6 of them done graduated from college.
The 49-year-old has not always been in their lives. After spending time locked up, he is committed to not letting them make his past mistakes.
Leave the fast money alone. It's not worth it.
A recent report released by the Violence Policy Center ranks Tennessee 8th for the highest rates of black homicide victims in the nation. The majority of the victims were black males. Furthermore, Author Dr. Warren Farrell found male teens committing crimes live without their biological fathers.
In 1965, the percentage of children being raised without dads in the African American community was 25%. Now it's over 70%, almost 3 times the amount in the African American community.
Farrell spoke about the National Fatherhood Summit in Nashville today, talking about the boy crisis, boys living without their fathers. This can affect their education and mental health.
Dad-deprived boys are much more likely to drop out of high school. Boys who drop out of high school, more than 20% of them do not have jobs in their 20s.
Both Farrell and Anderson agree communities need to provide more education and positive male role models for children. Anderson's message to teens:
You have a purpose here. Do good by that purpose. Wait your turn. Be patient. Don't be so eager to go get the quick money.
In Nashville, Brandon Marshall, News Channel.
All right. Hopefully that wasn't too painful right there. Look, there's a lot of support, and there are, a lot of people that suggest, well, what can we do about it? Is there anything that individuals like us can do? Yes, we can share this message. We can let other people know that we're here to support them if they're having any of these difficulties. It is not just a situation where we sit around and we ask people, well, fix the system and let me know when it's done. No, if we see these types of situations happening where people have breakdowns in their families, we can be support for them. We can offer them some level of guidance, some kind of avenue to get out of these. But the idea of bonding is that we need others. It's not just about the system itself. The system is comprised of people like you, me, and everybody in this classroom. And we can help with social control. So, having said that, having discussed this topic, I would like to leave you with an assignment. Please, everybody go onto the discussion board. I have it up there for you, but what I'm asking you to do before the next time we meet is to either find support or refute for Travis Hirschi's social control theory. And you can do that using any kind of surveys, any kind of other research that has been done on Travis Hirschi's social control theory. You can use case studies, find an offender who has committed crime and look at his background, and does it fit into this social control theory of broken bonds? Or you can refute the theory and find somebody who has committed an offense and had all great bonds, but still chose to commit crime, and we'll look at what may have caused that. So I know I went way too long here. I appreciate everybody listening today, and I'll see you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend.